Hello, thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to 3 Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast, where we explore the ongoing journey of recovery and the spiritual growth that comes with it. My name is Paul. I am your host. Today is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025, and this is episode 82. If you'd like to reach us by email, you can reach us at recoveryrecordings615@yahoo.com. You can find us on, we have a private Facebook page, which is 3 Legacies Recovery Recording Podcast. You can also find us, we're on Audible, iHeartRadio, several other major platforms. We have a lot of cool stuff coming up. Next Wednesday, actually a week from today, which is November 26th, we have Jack W. from Carbondale, Colorado is coming. And we're going to be talking, the episode's called Deep and Effective Spiritual Experiences. Super excited about that. Yeah, so stay in tune. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up before the end of the month. I'm super stoked about today's guest sitting right here in person with me. We got Sam G from Nashville. How's it going, buddy?
I like the way you talk, Paul.
Nice. It's rare I get to hang out with people while I'm doing this.
Yeah. It's fun, man. This is cool to get to spend some time in your beat laboratory.
Yeah.
I was wondering what this looked like.
Yeah.
You started probably just adding one thing at a time.
You know it, dude.
Yeah.
I'm alcoholic.
Now you got a full on. Yeah.
Yeah. Sam's from Nashville. What's your sobriety date, buddy?
December 5th of 99.
Oh, nice. December 5th.
So I'm 44 years old, and I got sober when I was 18. I come from a real long line of just bad alcoholism. My dad was a bad alcoholic. My mom was an alcoholic. My mom's dad was probably the worst alcoholic. I mean, he was notorious.
That was last week when we had Dave on. That's his sobriety date. You know?
Oh,
that?
yeah. That's I remember
81.
listening to that and thinking about it. You know, I kind of, since we did this last podcast, I kind of got into just getting on the 3 legacies because I know so many of those people, and I really like this modality so well because it makes you feel like you're having a phone conversation.
Yeah.
And so because I'm traveling so much for work, I love listening to podcasts. So it's neat to, I picked this one a lot. I subscribed to the channel, and you guys had a great one last week, and now you've got Jack W. He's great. That's going to be cool. He's a real cowboy. Yeah.
Carbondale, Colorado.
Yeah, he's kind of like the Yellowstone. Yeah. What's that character? What's Kevin Costner's character's name?
I don't even know. Yeah.
Oh, it's going to drive me crazy. It's going to come back to me here in a second. Yeah.
For the listeners, we're doing tonight's episode. We're calling it Emotional and Mental Disorders. Many of them do recover. And last time me and Sam had been on the show before. I don't remember what episode it was. It's been several months back, and it was kind of random. If you remember that day, me and you really hadn't spoke much at that point, right? And I'd called you on like a random Sunday and was like, "Hey, man, you want to do a podcast?" Remember? And it was like 2 hours later we were doing a podcast.
Oh yeah. Tom always said this thing, like when you give a talk. The reason I like this modality so much is because it's way less performative. And what I really like about Tom is he's just got this gravity about him. Like just a great old grandpa that loves you no matter, that unconditional love vibe.
It's so true.
But one of the things that he says is that it's not a good talk if you don't leave a pound of flesh on the table.
Nice.
Yeah. So I literally, I started thinking you've had so many people on this podcast that have done such a great job, I mean, especially a lot of the traditions workshops and the Big Book Step workshops. You know, all the guys that you've had on here, the tradition of AA or the tradition of recovery that I've come from. So I thought, like, I always have this thing where I want to be entertaining or funny, you know, and you only stretch this story. So I only have so much mileage out of, you know, I mean, I got sober well over half my life ago. And, you know, one thing that I've struggled with, and it's almost like whenever you talk about there are those two who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, that it's kind of like they're the pariah, or they're people who, I mean, you could get way off in the weeds and get way overly opinionated about certain things. You know, I mean, I'm not going to get into, I want to try and avoid that, because I think that, you know, you can be you can be a big book step worker, and struggle with stuff that, you know, I mean, there's a lot of fouled up brain chemistry out there, you know, I mean, a lot of it's hereditary, and it's not even, I mean, it's scientific that there's a lot of stuff. And what I struggled with OCD from a very early age. You know, I don't know, I can't speak to a lot of, you know, I've worked with guys that have struggled with certain things, and obviously, you know, I always have this weariness about the medical profession, because I feel like there's a lot of probably over medication that people do. And I try not to get too far into that, but, you know, the truth is, you take any alcoholic and you know, force them into abstinence for 48 hours and they're going to look like a whole multitude of things. Are we way too quick to diagnose people? Yeah. But are there people who suffer from genuine stuff? Yeah. There's some people that I really, I'll tell you a little bit about kind of where I come from with this. When I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, that's probably the earliest I can remember. Before that, I started doing things in rhythmic numerical patterns. Like, there are all these little baby signs, and what I had kind of jumped around, but I used to have to turn the lights off on series of threes, and then it got to be 3 times 3, then 3 times 3 times before I had left a room. Yeah. When I was a kid, and that was a little weird. But, you know, my problem is I've always been real sensitive, and I have a tender conscience behind my crust, you know?
Yeah.
And, but I've always had a real propensity towards mischief, you know, like I've always been really drawn to mischief. And
Explain what you mean.
Like when I was a kid, I mean, I was in 3rd grade stealing my mom's cigarettes out of her cartons and going in the woods and listening to, you know, heavy metal and rap music and stuff, and smoking cigarettes, and, you know, looking at dirty drawings that somebody's older brother drew, you know, or somebody stole a magazine from his dad. So I was always getting in trouble. And so one of the subsets of OCD, and it's so weird, I'm going to be as honest and open as I can with this experience, and we can do with it what we want. We throw it away. You know, worst case scenario, it's just scrap it. But, you know, my mom and dad have been sober for a long time. They were both in recovery by the point that I was I think it started coming on when I was around 3rd grade. And I was at my uncle's lake house. He had a lake house up in North Georgia. And I remember I was watching this episode of, I was watching this TV episode, and it was like during the Satanic Panic kind of thing, you know, where there are all these, it was like America's Most Wanted. And it talked about this couple, and it showed this real graphic, devil worship scene or something. And man, it knocked me so far back that was like something that people would do. And my brain started to worry. I don't know where I got it from. My brain started to just worry, like, what if you sold your soul to the devil? What if watching that you sold your soul to the devil? No, I didn't sell my soul to Dad. I remember I maybe made a casual comment. Dad, you don't think I sold my soul to the devil? You know, I don't think I did that. And son, I don't think you can sell your soul to the devil. You know, you might give some kind of a sane answer,
Yeah.
but later the next day I'm walking around and I can't shake it. I just can't. Like, what if you sold your soul to the devil? What if I said it in my head? If I said I sold my soul to the devil in my head, did I sell my soul to the devil? I'm like, and you might think it's just like a nightmare from something normal, but it tripped something that's labeled as scrupulosity. And, you know, when I would go to church, I would have, if we went to a church service, so when I got freaked out about the devil, I started getting probably more interested in church, you know, like, well, I got to find a fire hose for this fire, you know?
Yeah.
And before you knew it, I had a full-on snake handling, good old-fashioned Southern tent revival just going on in my head, man. We were casting out demons and doing all kind of stuff.
And you wasn't raised in around?
No.
Wow.
No, my mom was real, my mom, you know, she's into like Deepak Chopra and Marianne Williamson, and my dad was a real blue-collar kind of recovery guy that, but I started having nightmares over and over and over. And I just, in a compulsion. So this is what this looks like. And it would later change to different things, but it says obsessions. These are intrusive, unwanted, and reoccurring thoughts, images, and urges that cause significant anxiety or distress. Common example is fear of contamination, fear of harming others, intrusive, immoral thoughts, excessive doubt. And then compulsions are repetitive behaviors or acts that a person feels driven to perform in response to an obsession or according to rigid rules. Excessive cleaning, checking, counting, praying. So I started praying under my breath. I used to say, like, no, I'm a good Christian boy. And my brain would go, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You're a devil worshiper. And I'm like, no, I'm a good Christian boy. I'm a good Christian boy. What if you did
And
say
how
so,
long?
devil?
And this would
I was like 10
on,
years old. So I went to an
it would go on for days?
Oh yeah. And it went on so much so that, like, my dad, I remember he came in to visit. My mom was like, I don't know what to do with him. My dad and mom were divorced at the time. And my dad came in and I remember he was having lunch. He had ordered something at some fast food place, and it was so sad because this had been happening to me for weeks, and they didn't know what to do about it. I'd be like, Dad, do you think I'm a good Christian boy? I mean, I'm a good Christian boy, right? Don't you? You got to have him say it. Somebody's got to say it. And it would make me feel like, oh. And I'd be like, Jesus, I give it all. Whatever I'm making up, I don't remember verbatim what I prayed, but I would have to say these prayers, and then my brain would go, no. You probably sold your soul to the devil. I think I don't sell my soul to the devil. I give my soul to Jesus. I give my soul to Jesus. And it was just haunting me.
Wow.
And I remember my dad, he picked up his cheeseburger and he threw it against the wall. And he said, there is no hell, God. You know? And or something like that. And he started crying.
Wow.
Because he hated seeing me in pain. Sorry about that, God. But, you know, and when you see your kid that age, you know, really struggling, it's heartbreaking. And back then in the 90s, they really didn't know much to do with it. You know, like the treatment, it was kind of like a behavior modification unit where they medicate kids and, you know, kids who are having behavioral problems. Or most of the time now I would look at as kids who had some probably whack circumstances in their lives. They were acting out.
How did they treat it though? Like, so would they try to give you medicine or something at the time?
Yeah, they did. And they, but they also put me in this like place where they just kind of watch you, and it's mostly behavior modification for kids who have behavior problems, right? Like if you're a kid, you went to that. So by the time I was 18, I mean, you can just say that by the time I was like 12, I needed a drink.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I took a big swig of vodka, man, and it just relaxed all that stuff. Actually, the first drink I think I had was whiskey.
So right now we've talked about, like, so obviously it affected your family, obviously, clearly. And also in you internally, and then like you said, you had to start going to the hospital and all this. All right. But how else would it manifest as far as?
Well, so you kind of keep it a secret because you haven't lost touch with reality. You know it's ridiculous, but just in case, you know, the difference is that you haven't broken touch with reality. Like I didn't even have that. I didn't know anything about that. I hadn't gone to like I might have known a little bit about that. I remember, I think I went to like a Baptist daycare when I was little. And they talked about Jesus and the sacrifice and the death and resurrection. And I had a Mikey doll, and my mom told me that I fixed Mikey up on like this cross and said, "Did they kill him like this, Mom?"
Wow.
It's so crazy, you know. Because it really, it affected me. It hurt. It made my heart feel, so then I started, I mean, as soon as I got out of the hospital, I started taking some medication. They had the treatment.
Did that seem to help? Did the medication seem to help?
It does a little bit because it actually is like a neurobiological thing. Like there's that, I told you there's that part where like.
It's like a firing issue pretty much. Right?
Yeah. Like there's people who they have to check the stove 500 times, but it didn't start doing that. It started as, hey, your stove might be on, and it really might have been on. And then the part in their brain that gives you relief says, okay, good, you checked it, it's off, we're good to go. Yeah. Doesn't ever take over. Yeah. And so the long and the short of it is extremely distressing. I worried when I was a kid if I was a serial killer. First it was satanic, then it was, am I a serial killer? Then it was, am I a pervert? Then it was all the sordid things that you could think of. Yeah. And there's actually like all the classifications of intrusive thoughts. And I used to say, I wish mine was just like when people say OCD, I'm so OCD about this, that, and the other. That's really a slang term for like organized, but it's not what the real thing is.
It's just something more powerful than you.
Yeah, it's intrusive. It's intrusive, tormenting thoughts that everything that you're afraid of, your brain's just got this fear machine strapped to your head all the time. Yeah. So the long and the short of it is, by the time I had, I went to treatment for the first time when I was 14. I'd gone to boarding school. I'd developed a bad drug habit and alcohol. I've come from a long line of alcoholics. I love alcohol. It changed the way I feel in a way that, is so elusive that, I can't differentiate the true from the false. I would,
when you started drinking and using though, did it get worse or did it help it at all?
It aggravates it.
Does it?
It gets rid of it at first and then it aggravates it. Like you're drunk and then when you smoke a lot of weed or do a lot of amphetamines, it really aggravates it. And then, so listen to this, then I start to get a low grade tolerance of it, right? Like by the time you're 10, by the time you're 13, you've learned how to live with this. It's just noise in your head that's going on all the time. I went to private schools. I went to a boarding school in Charleston. My buddies and I was during when the movie Kids came out. You remember that movie, all the skateboard kids, like all of us skateboarded and, liked all the music back then. Yeah. And so we would kind of mimic that behavior. I mean, all of us were drinking 40s, like Old English and Schlitz, and, and I figured out how to fit in, how to be funny, and but the thing was I had that crazy stuff just going on all day long. And you build these neural networks, that are like, habits that you do every day. Like if you get a cup of coffee every day at 8:00 and you do it this certain way, you go to your Keurig and you'll build that pattern to where, we talk about dreaming you're awake or being asleep. I mean, we have compulsive behaviors that are habitual that we do all the time. Right. So those compulsions become habitual. But so fast forward to I go to my second rehab, I'm 16. And so then I come up to Nashville, I go to this, and I don't need to get into all the stories, but I struggled pretty bad. I mean, like in my family, my Uncle Bill and I were in rehab at the same time. Like the first time I went to rehab, I was like just barely in 9th grade. And I've been blackout drinking fairly regularly. And I got caught at my boarding house because I had some friends come over. We were staying at a boarding house, and I was upstairs, and I got blackout drunk and threw up and, got in a fist fight or something with one of the guys. And the dude found that the house father found that I've been mixing up his liquor. And it was really hard for me because I really liked that guy, and I felt terrible for stealing from him. And, he just felt like his heart was just like, he looked at me like I'd really betrayed him. And I remember I was riding in his truck with him, and he said something to me. I remember these tears, those like tears of surrender where I knew the truth was. I looked over at him. I said, Lynn, I'm going to do it again. Like I got a problem. And it just like came out of me. I just had this surrender thing. I'm like, I can't help it, man.
And you were 16 at this point.
I was 14.
Oh, 14. Okay.
Go to first rehab. Then I started going to AA meetings. I always loved people in AA meetings.
And your family, your mom and dad were sober at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my mom was probably a little over dramatic about, I used to think like, there's no way you can be, I'd go to rehab and then I would like get out and I'd be like, there's no way you're an alcoholic, Sam. I mean, you've been conditioned to believe that, AA is a cult and your mom's joined it and, they're projecting their trash on you. And, yeah. And so I went to a Baptist. I always went to these fundamental evangelical Christian different. I mean, there was one time where I was a kid, like in third or fourth grade, and we lived on Wilmington Island outside of Savannah, Georgia, and I went to all these little churches, and I had worked my way into these offices to talk to these ministers to have conversations about my soul. I mean, it's like, and I kept just seeking all this reassurance and all this stuff. So around the time I got to Nashville, I was 16. And I went to treatment here, and they had a pilot program for like a recovery school, for all the little pukes and punks that had come out of treatment, and I was kind of scared to go back home for a number of reasons. I had a guy who wanted to beat me up real bad because he was in jail, and had this girl who had a baby, and I was like, she had become my fiance at the time. And he was mad about it. And he had beat some guy in the face with a brick, like while he was in between. I mean, he was just at the time was like a really violent guy. And for this girl, wanted her to think I was really tough. But that guy scared the daylights out of me, man. Like, I mean, he was a complete psycho at that time, So, and there were other stuff. So I just decided I'd stay up here. I like the people here. And I met a girl in treatment. I always had a problem with that.
Yeah.
We always joke around like you may be an alcoholic if you met your soulmate in treatment. And it's a cute part of a talk, but so I get this girl. I'm living with a family here whose son also goes to the school. And this woman says, you can move into my house, but you're going to be like a member of my family. And she kind of takes me in as a second mom kind of thing up here, and we're still really close. My friend, who is became like a brother to me, ended up passing away. But I ended up getting this girl pregnant in rehab school, and it was I look at how stupid I was when I was 17, but I mean, I thought I was so smart. And I'd been sober for a little while, and then I started drinking again, and somehow, like, whenever I would get sober, the OCD would start to get worse. It would come up maybe 2 or 3 months down the road. I couldn't watch a movie. I couldn't do it because without like whispering to myself, I would get these awful intrusive thoughts. I mean,
Yeah. And let's talk about, because a lot of people are going to hear this and think, well, that's just untreated alcoholism. So let's talk about like your experience, because and you had talked to me before about how like you had a sponsor that was like, all right, let's work the steps and have a spiritual experience and see what happens, right?
Right. So there was a time. So what OCD did was it would calm it down a little bit. I remember I went to this OCD support group about this time, because when she got pregnant, I got that produces natural anxiety, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden my brain would have these awful images, like when I was a little kid, just to give you an example, like I was 10 years old and my dad and I were fishing in this beautiful, in this marsh grass, and he's cutting this fish with a fillet knife. My brain just all of a sudden sees me stabbing my dad to death. And I'm like, oh my God. And I get to the house and I'm like, we can't tell him that. And I don't want to do that. It completely violates it wasn't like it was a guy I was mad at. It was just something that I was scared of. I saw a sharp knife in my brain. My imagination played that out. And so it was one of those things where your mind can really work against you. And so I had with a baby coming, I got married to this girl. I dropped out of school. I got my GED and I started sales. Did several different things, but I started drinking again because I was like, I started drinking non-alcoholic beer, and my brain was saying like, "Man, you're a grown up. There's no way you can be a real alcoholic. You've just been conditioned to believe that, and that always plays up in my head. And I always joke around when I tell that story that like my mind would always bring up like those Mormon people that had like Stockholm syndrome that had been rescued, but just wanted to go back to their captor kind of thing. And I said, that's what AA did to me, like, and so I'm going to have to drink my way through the shame. So I finally go to this meeting that's it's a group that met in Nashville that I knew met Sunday morning. It was that December. It was a rainy morning, and I had a bout with OCD. But here's the thing. I didn't talk about it. You wouldn't know that I had it. You wouldn't know that we're sitting here talking, and I've rebuked Satan 15 times in the name of Jesus, and I've given my soul to Jesus, and I'm having this terrible thought in my head, and like, Jesus, like, I got it, man. I got it. Like I took it many years ago, buddy. Don't worry, so, but I'm having a nervous breakdown because of the baby thing, and she has a baby, and I'm having all this nervous, scary energy, and I'm afraid to hold the baby because I don't want to contaminate it. Like, I feel like I'm going to contaminate with this weird stuff that's going on in my head, which is a real common thing. Then I got scared of like, what if I hurt her, or what if so there's this guy that did this podcast, and he's a real successful guy, and he started this thing called intrusivethoughts.org. And it was so cool because I was listening to a podcast the other day with him, and he goes on and he was like, I just had to get okay with these terrible images, man. I was going to visit my niece for the first time. My sister had a kid in the hospital, and I knew that they were gonna come up. So right before I went in the room, I went to another room and just went ahead and murdered them all in my head and let it sit up there. And then I went in there and held him. And he was being jovial, but the truth of, he would have all these intrusive thoughts about something that was precious to him. And he went ahead and just said, bring it, which is the real solution. The real problem is self-centered fear, right? And this is just another vein of that. But here's what happened. So I go to this meeting one morning. I'm really wanting to off myself. I'm really tired, depressed, nasty, rainy winter Nashville morning, hungover as shit, brains racing, feel depressed. I told my wife I was out on the porch of our apartment smoking a cigarette, I think, and I was like, I think I'm going to go to a meeting. She goes, oh, you are? And I'm like, yes. And she had already she was conspiring with other, like her family to leave me because I had become a complete psychopath with alcohol, just it's what the alcohol does to my soul that it doesn't do to other people's soul. I heard you ask Scott in one of those episodes, you're like, what's a sin? He said, I don't really, and it talks about like biblically, some things are a sin to one man, but another person it's not. Like, I know when I have a deep hatred from somebody, it's obscuring my peace with God.
Yeah, blocked.
Yeah, just all clogged up. Mm-hmm. And when I drink, it just does that. It started doing it to me when I was like 15. It was terrible. I could get drunk and I could get a little bit of that peace, but I felt so blocked.
So let's go into, so you finally get sober,
yeah.
right? And you're sober for a while.
Well, I go to this meeting. I go to backroom group, and so I go to this meeting, and there are a lot of like what you would think of as like heavy hitter, solution oriented people.
Yeah.
And I got hooked up with one of them. Like 6 months into it, I was like, man, I can't drink. I can't not drink. I was at the jumping off place, like I couldn't imagine life with or without alcohol. And I asked this guy to be my sponsor. He was giving a talk, and after the talk, I remember, he and John, they did that thing. We joke about that kind of like tongue in cheek stuff, like where he'll say, I like to invite God to the meeting. And if you don't have a God that you believe in, borrow mine. It works for me. I literally did that 25 years ago. sitting in the back of 3rd and Lindsley. They had a little speaker meeting called the Speakeasy, and I sat back there, and I was in the back chair, and I was just going to meetings, hanging on. I was even skydiving, like just I had to do something to get out of like I needed a jolt out of abstinence, because I didn't know, I was too young and didn't know how to handle this baby, this marriage, this stuff. I couldn't drink anymore, but I couldn't not drink. And so I asked this guy to sponsor me, and I told him I'm all screwed up. And he said that he would get back to me, but he gave me a bunch of speaker tapes, and he gave me a big hug, one of those big kind of long hugs.
That's what he does.
I remember I teared up.
Yeah.
Like at first I thought I was like a part of my brain goes, see, this guy's trying to make out with you. You got to hit him right. And another part of me goes, the other part of me just fell into his arms, into that security of the way that so many people, he felt like a father, felt like somebody who was just not going to let me. And there's something in me that said, you better buy whatever he's selling, because that's all you got.
Yeah.
Psychiatrists don't deal with you. You've been to rehab school. You've been to 3 to 2 treatments. You've been to 2 or 3 mental hospitals. By this time, your life is nothing of what you want it to be.
Yeah.
So I'm working the steps, and I start really getting into this. This guy says, hey, this is how you know that I'm sponsoring you. That if I'm going to give you assignments, I sponsor by assignment. And if you're doing those assignments, you're being sponsored.
Nice.
If you're not doing those assignments, you're sponsoring yourself. And I don't want you to get the wrong idea and tell somebody else that you tried to sponsor and it didn't work. If you're not doing the assignments, I just grabbed hold of every rung on that ladder with this guy and just started going through it. And I remember I would leave his house, and when I would go into his house, I felt a comfort, like I was with a father or an elder or something,
Yeah.
And I trusted him. I trusted him with my life. And when I left, you feel the sense of an awakening is like when I first started. You ever remember when you first started listening to music and you were drinking beer and you heard how good music sounds when you're drunk? Like when you're starting, like on beer number 3, like you're like, damn, that's a good song. They must have wrote that for this moment, and you start. Well, I would leave his house and I just felt energized, like I just had this energy around me, and the music sounded great, and I felt, and I would go in to do stuff that I really didn't want to do, but I would do it, and then I would come out and I just feel like this new energy was kindled inside of me, and the safety. Well, soon, the OCD thing kind of comes and goes. It's one of those things that it can subside for a while. Once you get really used to one subject, it'll jump to another subject. And then you get used to that, and then it'll jump to another subject. Well, so I'll get into I was sober a year, and I told him that I had this stuff. It started going really bad, or I started having it, and the treatment for OCD then was cognitive behavioral therapy. So I went to Vanderbilt and got a cognitive behavioral therapist. And she'd make me do these exposures where I'd have to look at the stuff I was afraid of, and have all kind of crazy examples. And
this was working the program.
Oh yeah. I was working the steps. I was having, and this stuff just came back. It got all over me, and I felt so discouraged because the religious stuff came back.
Yeah.
Like it would provoke evil stuff to mess up my 4-step while I was working on it.
Wow.
And I'd be like, no, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And I remember I started telling. And I have it, and I could talk about it like I'm talking about it to you. Like, dude, I got this little problem. I got like a tent, snake rally going on in my head. I've got to rebuke the devil 1,500 times a day.
Yeah.
I would have sales calls. I worked at this place. It's like I was an inside sales rep for this technology company that built stuff for like fuel management systems for truck stops and stuff. And I would have to pause my calls so that I could rebuke the devil. Because my brain would go, oh, you gave your soul to the devil.
And this is in sobriety.
Oh, yeah.
It
was awful.
Wow.
And it just would keep going. And then I would go, no, I don't in the name of Jesus. Because somewhere I was high on amphetamines, and I went to this, or I wasn't that high on that. They weren't like cool amphetamines. They were just like a bunch of Adderall and a bunch of trucker pills. And I had a drum instructor that was like a Pentecostal one time, and he was like, man, that's the devil. That's spiritual warfare there. You need to rebuke it in the name of Jesus. And I was like, well, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get it out of there.
You hung on to it.
And the more I did it, the more it came. And then it was just like, I'm walking around, the shopping mall, looking for some new shoes or something with my wife, and I was walking by and I'm getting all these terrible intrusive thoughts. I'm like, I rebuke you, Satan, in the name of Jesus. I can imagine my wife said, what did you just say? I'm like, oh, nothing. Like it started getting really bad. And so
did the treatment that when they started giving you the treatment, did it help?
It made the way that you do that is you have to expose yourself to the fear. Like I would have to look at the numbers and I have to write a story where the worst case would happen, and I have to sit with it and let that anxiety and let all the terrible thoughts come. Like one of the behavioral exercises was, because I'd have these violent images sometimes that would come on in my head. And they said the treatment was you have to have I wouldn't touch knives around my family. And I had to put a knife next to the bed and sit next to my wife. I mean, it was weird, but I was like, okay, well, you imagine just listening to a romantic, having a nice little middle class, family, and just going to leave this here for a second, and your wife going, okay, honey, you having some anxiety? That's good. Don't react.
Yeah. Wow.
And so here is what really, really broke me. I started to get really stressed out, and the job that I was in was a lot of stress, and it aggravated it so bad that I thought I had this trick in my brain. This sounds completely ridiculous now, but I had this trick in my brain that said that maybe you would sell your soul to the devil and you would just give it all to Satan if part of it would be like you'd be in the Jesus Witness Protection Program, wherein he would give you amnesia that you had done it, and maybe you already did that. Mm-hmm. So this would stop, because that's what's going to make it all stop, Sam. You just got to just do it. You're just going to go right to the devil. And I remember telling Scott about that, and I was like, and we were looking at this step work, and I go, man, I'm going to F this up. And he looked at me in the eyes, and he said, man, you don't have the power to F it up.
Yeah.
And we talk about God with skin. I went to these cognitive behavioral therapies, sessions, and Scott would be there. And he would come in the lobby and sit with me and just hang out.
Wow.
And he would say, you do whatever they tell you to do. Mm.
And this is somebody that had been working with alcoholism, for years at this point. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he realized there's something else going on.
And I won't use that name, but he was a big book practitioner, he was a guy that really took it seriously, and one of the greatest coaches of getting, one of the most effective newcomer guys that works with newcomers on a regular basis. However, so two of us he sponsored that were younger guys, and one went to divinity school, Duke Divinity, and
because I'm trying to think base it off how my experience when I first got sober, right? Because I've shared with you before. So in I've got the privilege of working with a lot of guys over the years, right? I mean, a lot of guys. And there's only been a handful. I'm just going to throw a number out. Let's just say that it's 40 guys, right? There's only been the percentage wise, maybe 3 or 4 of those guys that have that have had when they first come in, their mind messed with them in such a way, right? So when I first got sober, my mind played so many tricks on me, it was ridiculous. Yeah. Now, and I used to chalk that off to where it was just alcoholism. And I'm not so sure that my personal experience didn't have a lot to do with alcoholism, and also, probably a touch of psychosis because I've been shooting meth for years or whatever,
That'll do it.
Right? So, yeah. And I hadn't slept in years, pretty much. So but my mind was still so active, where it was just unbearable for me, right? So it started to subside after I started getting into certain meditations and certain, I'd get busy doing other things, or get busy. Yeah. But looking back on it over the years, all these guys I've worked with, there's only been a handful of guys that had some mental stuff going on as bad as what mine was, right?
Yeah.
But so the reason I'm bringing this up was because, from what you're saying, your experiences, it sounds like it's something completely different. This is way bigger than you. Did mindfulness meditation and stuff, what really, really helps with it?
So the problem with mindfulness meditation is I couldn't let the intrusive thoughts go without reacting to them. I couldn't look at them from a non-judgmental perspective. But I had a complete mental breakdown at a year and a half sober, where I was just ready to blow my brains out. And because I was doing it, it had snowballed, and I was doing it all the time. It had taken over my life. I couldn't change my kid. I couldn't be around my son. I felt like I was contaminating him. I had a little infant at the time. My wife was frustrated at me. I mean, it was awful. And I was like, man, I don't want to drink. I want to blow my brains out. Like, I'm tired of this. I don't know, whatever this is with me. Yeah. So, I had this thing where I was just compulsing in the shower one day. I was like, no, I give my soul to God, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, no, God. I said GD real loud. And then I said God right after it. And then my brain goes, that's it. It was a snowy day too. It was like, that's it. It got quiet. And I was like, oh no. Yeah, you've committed blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. Nothing good for you, buddy. No bueno. Yeah. You're condemned. Yeah. And I was like, shh. I brought this on my whole family. I brought this on everybody. Nobody understands it. And then like you have all this like weird confirmation. I was starting to break into psychosis because I remember my dad came, my parents came up. They took all the guns out of the house, and we lived in a sweet little suburb, and I had a sweet little baby. He wasn't, at this point, I guess he was maybe 2 or something. And my dad came in and he had this star. We were at this behavioral therapy appointment, and he had this star drawn on his hands. And I was like, what is that? Is that a devil thing? Like, it was like the devil was saying, he goes, oh yeah, your son drew it on me. And I was like, man, it's the dark side. It's come to show me through him. Yeah. You know, it was like a devil wink, not a God wink. It was like a, you know, F you, you're donezo. Yeah. And so I completely just went, I talked to the behavioral therapist lady, and I'm like, there's darkness all over me, and this, whatever it is you're doing. She's like, well, you know, why don't you come with me? So I went to this inpatient program. And when I went in there, I remember I called Scott on my break, and I said, Scott, they're trying to tell me to take medication, more medication. What if I do this? Blah, blah, because you do whatever they say to do. Yeah. And then I called him back, I would call him back, and it'd be like, Scott, do you think I sold my soul to the devil? Blah, blah. And he goes, you don't have the power to sell your soul to the devil. He got so mad at me one day. He lost his temper for like 2 seconds. Wow. You know, because he was so, everybody was frustrated with it. Sure. Yeah, and the truth is, it's all bullshit. Yeah. It's all bullshit. It's a story your brain tells you. Like, I can make a big dramatic thing out of it, but the truth is, I was repetitively talking. I made something worse by temporarily trying to get relief from it by what's called a compulsion, like a prayer or a tap. Some people, you know, will tap their legs. You're not in a roundabout way. You're resisting it, so you're stuck with it. Fighting it. You're stuck with it. And you know, the big book says we cease fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. And that's a spiritual practice. That's a spiritual truth. Is like anything you resist, you're stuck with. And when you can accept it, you can move past it. Yeah. So let's go into so we've talked a lot about this, but what does life look like today on a practical? Like, does this still affect you all over the place? I'm just curious. Practically. So I have one company that I bought. I started working for this little luxury car dealership, and ended up, I mean, I had prayed about it, and I don't know where I got the idea, but I just felt kind of this, you know, like my buddy Kurt talks about, you get these kind of revelatory inspiration things when you're younger, and you realize, hey, that was a real watershed moment. You know, I drove by this place. I was working at a treatment center for adolescents, and I drive by this little car dealership that's full of luxury used cars. And I go, you know, I just need something that I can just, I was going through a divorce at the time. And I was like, I just need something that I can just chill and do that's thoughtless. That doesn't involve a lot of emotional activity, because I'm kind of burnt. And I got this idea like, hey, your buddy Neil worked over there. He makes $10 an hour. I was like, oh, $10 an hour in 1999 or, you know, 2000. I mean, one could get that figured out. Yeah. I mean, you know, and so they said they weren't hiring salespeople, but they would hire, a lot manager, and the title had the name manager in it. So I thought it impressed my parents. So I got that job there, and then a year later I was selling cars, and then I was managing the place. And when I went there, and I would joke around, but the guy that was kind of my mentor was like this good-looking guy, and he had this beautiful South American girlfriend that would come in. She was super eccentric, you know, and they would argue. Oh yeah, he drove a he always drive like a Bentley or something cool, and they would get in these silly little arguments. And she'd be like, Sam, don't tell him that I wrecked such and such. Can you come get me and swap out a car? Like it was just so funny. Yeah. But I ended up, I wanted to be just like that guy. And a couple years later, I had the same circumstance. I lived right up the street from him in Green Hills and had a South American girlfriend and was driving a cool car and thought I had really arrived. But when I really fell in love with the car business was what my life looks like today. I have 3 children. That son is 25, been sober 25 years.
You've been sober 25 years now.
Yeah, occasionally I rebuke Satan
a
couple times a day, maybe, but and I do ERP, exposure response prevention.
Currently.
There's all kind of great stuff now, and it's so easy to get treatment for. Like, there's something called noocd.com, and you can go on there, and they'll match you with a Zoom ERP therapist.
And like what does that look like as far as like what do you currently do, like practically?
I'll write out what like the crazy anything. Like for me, the word curse got to be a big thing. Like if anybody said the word curse, I was like, oh God, am I cursed?
Sure.
And my brain would start to look at the day, and I'd be like, and I own 2 businesses, and there is a shit show. And some great, like if you own a small business and you have 15 to 20 people, there's something going on all the time.
Yeah.
And you can build up in your brain whether or not it's you could tell yourself whether or not it's successful or not in that day. Yeah. Whether you're having a good day or a bad day, depends on your perspective on a lot of things, because there's always fires to put out. There's always things, between the 2 places in Chattanooga and here, like we'll sell on average 180 to 200 cars, wholesale and retail, like luxury cars, or a lot of them are.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys in my business are recovery. I wanted to make it. I ended up buying that place way down the line.
Yeah.
Which is a total God thing. I had a really big surrender experience working the steps at about 14 years.
Wow. Let me ask you this. I'm curious though. So I have sponsees that have like mental health, that treat their mental health on a regular basis, right? I told you that I had a sponsee that ended up committing suicide 2 days before Christmas last year, right? I also have I have one currently that's been sober a long time that treats his mental health in different ways, right? When he's mentioned to me in the past, he says, look, when I have to treat it way different. When he treats it, it's way different than like when he's treating his alcoholism, right? So I'm curious, like on someone that's been sober for 25 years now, right? And you have years of experience in recovery and the spiritual program of action.
Yep.
You live a program of action. You stay close, connected with people. You go to meetings. I know your sponsor personally.
Yeah.
What is the difference between, like, I'm curious what treating the mental health side it looks like versus like.
Well, you can't do one without the other. You can't treat that adequately without the spiritual program of action. Like I believe in, I live my life in the disciplines of 10, 11, and 12, meaning that my framework of my day, I do evening review, I do morning meditation, I do, I follow the instructions of 86, 87, and 88. I continue to, I've really fallen in love with AA over the years. I fall in love with it because of the relief from the bondage of self that I get. And because at different times my OCD made me sensitive to theology or maybe some of the language. Yeah. The big book language is always like a good center of gravity for me. And I could always come back to, there's a loving God. He loves you. Look, he's taking care of you. Look at how much he's taking care of you. Yeah. And
it's just the mind can get out in left field a lot, right?
Yeah. Well, sometimes you have to do some additional stuff. Like the thing about the OCD though is, as dramatic as it sounds, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like you can get better rapidly.
Yeah.
Like once you start getting through tiptoeing in the water, like I had something told me, I felt prompted in meditation one morning, and I believe in being my spirituality and my relationship with God and with Christ and with all that stuff has nothing to do with the OCD stuff. That is like a a stupid cops and robbers movie that goes on in my head, right? That I just couldn't let go. Mm-hmm. And I got this prompting that says, Sam, you got to start being responsible with it because it's like a low grade headache. Because I wouldn't take care of it. You know, like I had it going on and I saw symptoms of it. I was aware enough of it, but it's like part of my 10th step. Like, what are you doing that's OCD? What are you doing? What are you doing to protect yourself from feeling uncomfortable? What are you, you know? And so I
treat it. You're saying.
So I started treating it as a way to be a good steward of my mind for people.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't like to think I'm like, oh, I'm a big boss. I have all these people, you know, blah, 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 blah. But I do have a responsibility to steward this business. And we opened this business 2 years ago, and it was another one in Chattanooga, and it was a lot more. I always underestimate stuff, you know, or else I probably wouldn't do it. Yeah. But at the same time, I adopted a baby. Yeah. My wife and I did.
And that's recently. It's not even 2, right? What's the baby's name?
So his name is Reynolds.
Reynolds, nice.
Yeah. And he's just he's just a little savage. Yeah. I love that kid. And he's so funny. You know, he's so sweet, but he's got so much energy. He's big. He's, you know. Yeah. He's in over the top 100th percentile in height and weight. So he looks like he's like, you know, he's a year and a half, and he's actually he's a sweetheart. But you know, I my life, if you look at it, the reason I say this is because I don't tell this to a lot of people, and I can give a much better story that makes me look vulnerable and real. But that's not. Or that hides this part from you. And something in me said, man, you need to do this and embarrass yourself. This is he won the neighborhood costume contest.
Nice. This is Chucky. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So my son's 26, lives in Chattanooga. My daughter's 16. And we have a really good life, man. We have a really good life. I do what I love to do. I do a lot of, I love my job. I love, you know, building teams and watching younger guys who, you know, aren't necessarily, a lot of them some of them are recovery, some of them are just aren't, you know, just, you know, they're kind of, a lot of them are like kind of the quick-witted ADD kids in high school.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And what I love is the speed of the speed and challenge of, you know, like I work a lot of auctions at the same time. So I'll work like 11 or 12 lanes on the computer, and it's like commodity trading. It sounds like a cattle auction, you know, it's just, and you can really screw stuff up. But, you know, we grew that business considerably, which doesn't always mean it's profitable. I mean, you can start to grow a business to where it just gets, you know, and yeah, the point of it was I needed to be a good steward. Like it's time to move. You know, as you grow, it's time to stop tolerating this. It was like giving up cigarettes. Like you got to give this up. This is not.
Yeah.
Like you can't keep doing this in your head and at night. And it really doesn't bug me very much, hardly anymore, because I've gone on and off with cognitive behavior therapy. But you know, really, what I always end up doing with certain things is, you know, good is the enemy of great. And I'll settle for just as much relief as, like
you said, the little small headache or the little irritability.
But was it I love Bob B was talking about how we're in a lake of manure up to our ears. And we're like, do you want to get out? And you're like, no, just get that guy next to me to quit making waves.
Yeah, that's funny, dude. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so that's kind of like.
You've learned how to live with it, work with it.
It's not even a big deal.
Yeah,
like sometimes I laugh at it. Yeah. You know,
it's possible to stay sober with it.
Oh
right?
yeah,
you're gonna have all kinds of people that are gonna hear.
Yeah, it was never a big deal. But I'll tell you something that happened though. Can I tell you about a little experience that I had when I was in that psychiatric hospital a year and a half? I thought that God had brought me out of this to punish me. That He was mad at me and He was showing me that I wasn't worthy of the love. You know, like all these guys in AA had such a wide birth canal. I mean, you get guys from all over the place. Yeah. But I was the guy who was kind of marked, with like the disability, the crazy guy, right? Mm-hmm. And it's pretty humbling. Everybody in my home group, they brought me this poster to put in the psych ward with all these, all these nice things, that they, and it was just, and I felt so defeated. I was like, God, I'm going to die in a psych ward, man. I'm going to be on social assistance, some kind of social assistance. I can't function. Yeah. And I was smoking cigarettes, and I'd have to pray we had smoke breaks, and I'd have to pray on my knees to prove that I was humble before God, because my brain would go like, if you love God, you just to put that cigarette out and say a prayer on your knees. I'm like, I'm not going to do this in the middle of the lobby or the smoking area. There's all these. You'll say you love Jesus if you're a real Christian. And so I would kneel down. I'd start praying. But there was this girl that was there, and she was pregnant, and she had slits from both wrists all the way up, and she was probably 7 or 8 months pregnant, and her arms were all bandaged up, and she wouldn't talk to anybody, but she would talk to me. She'd smoke in the corner, like looking, and I remember I gave her this little wooden cross thing that someone had given me, and as I was leaving that place, I looked out, and there's a sycamore tree. You know how sycamore trees, just their leaves, I think, are so beautiful. But I was looking out, and there's this big sycamore tree out of the hospital room. And I just said, God, if you've forsaken me, I'm going to keep trying, because I don't want to live without you. And the message that I received was, nobody's forsaken you. The only battle you have are against trash in your head. None of this is real. Like, I was watching those sycamore trees blow in the wind, or the leaves blow in the wind, and I got the sense of relief that it was going to be okay, because I was just, he said, I've never been mad at you. You're not in an argument with God. You're having, this is all just trash in your head. Got nothing to do with me and you.
Wow.
And it really, it was a long recovery process after that, but, it manifests itself. I mean, the religious thing is just something extreme that I could feel comfortable talking about here, but it manifests itself in every form of fear or dark alley that your brain could think of. It's just like when you have a nightmare. You ever have a nightmare where you're like, God, how did I even think that? Yeah. The more creative you are.
Any kind of taboo, anything.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all over.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and if you're disturbed by yourself, and you can't quench that disturbance, that's what it is. I mean, my life is not at all defined by that. Most people don't know that I have it.
It's crazy because like the cool part about this is that like you do the work. You're really well connected in the community. You have a successful life. It's so easy for people to look at it and just be like, oh, that's just untreated alcoholism. That's not it. Clearly, that's not what this is. I mean, like.
Yeah, and I think the reason I wanted
that's important.
The reason I wanted to say that, what was the guy's name? Ed M. passed away, and he said, "We'll do it with you." And you always hear that famous quote from Scott. You can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up. And there's two things that I think, the couple things that are important points to this is that the power of God's love is real in my life and demonstrated. And if I told you some stuff like, if I have stories that where God's unmistakably shown up in my life, I mean, you'd have one of those things where you have to say, oh, well, that's, what Tom always says, if it's odd, it's God, Yeah. I mean, I bought this business that I started at. I was $100,000 in debt from a failed thing, and I'd gotten divorced, and started going back through the steps with Tom, and ended up going, it's a long story, but I ended up doing the same thing I did with a guy that I met in the program up in Seattle that had a big dealership. And as soon as I got there, I met Kenny Downs. You know Kenny? I never told you about Kenny. He's passed away, but one of the most beautiful people, man. I wish I could show you. I wish I'll send you one of his retreats, man. You got to upload it. But he was a good friend of Don's.
Gotcha.
I think he was real FOTS Midwest stuff. He was, or not FOTS, that's Brad. FOTS Northwest. I think he had a lot to do with that, but he was a beautiful human being. And I went to one of his retreats, and mean, there was times in my life where I was really scared, not drunk.
Well,
You know, I'd taken some risk, and some risk had blown up in my face. And I had made decisions based on self, which placed me in a position to be hurt because I was excited.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
How often do you work the steps now? Curious. Like officially, I know I get it. We all kind of like go.
So
through
I
them.
usually do it when I work with a sponsee.
Yeah.
And then I'll do an inventory quite often. Like I probably do an inventory and work through that about once every 6 months. I can do a small inventory on something, but you know, I do a little tear down inventory, and I'll usually am working with one or two guys, and we'll do the third step together, and then I'll write inventory when they write inventory, and then like now I need to read one to Tom. He's come back in town, so I'll probably read another one to him. And
he's gonna be here for a couple more months, ain't he?
And life got a little stressful with opening that other business, and then it turned out we were really going to adopt this little boy. We adopted him at the hospital.
Wow.
This couple came to my wife, one of her longtime like friends came to her and said, "Hey, and we had been trying, like one of the things when my wife and I got together was, you know, hey, you know, I want more kids. And I've been praying for God, you know, like I had a daughter who was 10 at the time, maybe 9 at the time. And she was getting to that age where, you know, like a single dad, like girls don't want to go spend the night at the single dad. I mean, it's just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I wanted to have I wanted a partner, and I was tired of doing just, I was tired of dating just for fun. I wanted a partner.
Yeah.
And I prayed about it, and this person came around, and it was interesting. One day I'll tell you the story about that. But so you know, I wanted somebody who's going to be nurturing, you know, and man, my daughter just fell in love with her. They love each other. They're so sweet, you know. Like she was the best thing that happened to us. I mean, when I think about how much she's done, but she said, you know, she wanted to have a child, and she was talking about we went through all this fertility stuff. And, you know, I always had children on accident, not on accident, but, you know, where I came from, when I came from, it was like oh no, what are you going to do? And not that if anybody that neither of my kids were, I don't like to use the word accidents. They were blessings.
Yeah.
And,
wasn't planned though.
More so my daughter. Yeah. The son thing, it was, it's kind of it was kind of an interesting thing, but so I never put so much effort into trying to do that. You know, something you didn't do, right? Yeah. And when I say, I don't mean to be, I mean just like intention into the thinking about it, doing this fertility stuff, because I mean it's not that fun to do for either person, and it didn't work after 5 rounds of IVF. And I remember my wife was crying on the bed one day, you know, and she was like, and I was like, you know, okay, no baby. That's okay. You know, all right, we're in that chapter. And I looked over at her, and she had these tears just running down her face. And she goes, I'm just not ready to give up on this dream yet. I know God wants me to be a mother. Wow. And I thought, I know God's going to come up with something. And she brought into the house these pamphlets on adoption a couple of weeks later. And it felt icky to me. Like it was like, you know, it wasn't. The adoption process felt real icky to me, in that, you know, it was almost like brokering a baby, like buying a baby from like a different state. There's just a lot of stuff in it that I wasn't. It wasn't like I had given a lot of thought to it, but I just said initially, I'd said to her, "Hey, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm not feeling this." Yeah. And she goes, "Well, we'll just give it some thought and prayer, but it does feel kind of weird." And I'm like, "Yeah." Well, a couple days later, she came to me, and she had lunch with one of her good friends who was an older person that was a customer of hers and a client of hers for a long time, and said, my grandson is 15 and he's gotten his girlfriend pregnant, and we don't believe in abortion. Would you guys still be willing? Are you still trying to have a family? Wow. Like out of the blue. Wow. And so my wife called me and said, "Hey, what do you think about that?" And I said, get them on the phone. Let's see if we can make this happen. You know, wow. And I didn't have any hesitation. And usually I had hesitation. And I thought, well, worst case scenario, you never know how these things are going to work. It's really early on. We don't know if it's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. And, you know, a year later, we had a beautiful little baby. I prayed in the room with his biological father and mother. And, you know, my wife was the first one to hold him in the hospital. And yeah. Now I got this little savage,
that's powerful.
1.5-year-old little kid just chasing me around my house.
Wow.
Yeah, he's so funny.
Wow.
He's, you know, he's just got a lot of character. He's got a lot of, he's just very like expressive and a lot of energy, very funny, very cute, very charming. He's got a lot of charisma.
Wow.
And you know, it's one of those. Yeah, I'm naturally before that. I was working about 20 hours a week. I was doing real well. I was taking on like an old guy boxing habit. Like I'd gone and gotten a boxing trainer and stuff, and was doing this other stuff. Yeah. And
how old are you now?
44.
44.
Yeah. And I would go do sauna a couple times a week and a cold plunge a couple times a week, and I get a massage once a week, and I would just, you know, a lot of self-care.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then you go back to having a toddler, man. It's like it's on. And then I opened up this other business, and I was in the process before, but we're in the process of building and remodeling this business. Well, now that the dog caught the bus, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was out of town. So there's a lot of challenges. It was really hard. But yeah. Oh yeah. Is that better?
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
So anyway, but the couple things, there's a book called Obsessive Thoughts, I think, in Secret Rituals by a guy named Ian Osborne. I've actually done ERP with him, but he's one of the renowned guys that have written a lot of stuff on that. There's tons of books on it. If you have struggles with that, there's even like an OCA thing for people who have that. The one thing you need to know is, like, no matter how crazy you feel, it's not that big of a deal. And I'll tell you one last story, and then I'll shut up. About what, right I get out of that mental hospital, right? A little while later, there's this retreat in Swanee. This is how I remember it. So, it's a while ago. But they
St. Mary's up there?
Yeah. So I was sitting on that bench at St. Mary's overlooking
the peak.
And I was with Don Pritz.
Wow.
Or Don P.
Yeah.
And I was sitting up on that bench, and I got some time with him by myself, and I said, Don, man, this is kind of what's going on. This is what I got going on in my brain. I got all these crazy thoughts. I got to do this. I go, like, what do you think of that? And he looked over at me, and he had these like piercing eyes, and he was missing a couple fingers, and he'd always be like, take a deep breath and get some inspiration.
Wow.
And then he looked at me in the eyes, and he said, I think one day you're going to help a lot of people with that.
Wow.
And maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was driving out to a treatment center to give a talk, and it was late. And it was just one of those things where I was tired from a long day of work. I didn't have any steam. And I rarely talk about that stuff in meetings, but it's like, it's one of the embarrassing things you have to show. Like, it's not something you want to talk about. I don't want to show it to anybody, but I'm just doing it because I feel like you've had so many people who've talked about so much good content that I don't know what you could add to it. But this is for people who, if there's some small substrate of people who are struggling with this, we don't have the power to thoughts don't have the power to push God's love away from us. There is a real creator that flows through us and that has the power to, that loves us beyond our ability to understand it.
Yeah.
And I was giving a talk that night, and I said, God, I was on the way there. I was slammed a Red Bull. I was just like, God, I got no fuel in the tank today. I need your help. So I go in there and I give this talk, and something says, why don't you talk about this?
Wow.
And so I talked about it a little bit. And this guy from the back of the the room comes up to me, this farmer guy, and he said, "Man, I've got that really bad."
Wow.
And I started talking to him for a second, and all of a sudden that I got this visualization in my mind's eye of that experience, like right there, frozen in time on that bench with Don. And it was just like, it sent chills down my spine, you know, because I could see it like almost through time.
Yeah.
Right there.
That's the beautiful part about recovery is you can utilize all this stuff, right? Yeah, you get a purpose and you utilize it. God uses it for whatever.
You can think you're absolutely screwed.
Yeah.
And you can feel like absolute dog shit, and it's not true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not real.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be convinced that you're going to go bankrupt. Life's going to go. I mean, and you're walking around planning what you're going to do through that. Yeah. And it's not going to happen.
Yeah. I remember I heard a meditation one day, and the guy said, "Unhappy is just a thought."
Yeah.
It's like, it's true, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you look at all these guys who are like super high level practitioners of like, you know, all the big book awakenings. And then, you know, you have all the big, what's the thing in Texas, the other big thing that the Raymer brothers do.
Oh yeah. The primary purpose.
Yeah. Primary purpose stuff. Yeah. There's tons of like very skilled practitioners. Yeah. Very, or experienced practitioners who've done a lot of stuff and done a lot of work and carried a lot of water.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like I said before, like if you get to meet any people, you realize that the direct capacity for your crazy meter, you know, that goes, if it swings to the right, you know, it's like a metronome. The further it swings to the right, the further it swings to the left. Most of those people, like I was telling you, that Ed Dowling quote where he said, you know, if I ever get to heaven, it's because I was backing away from hell. Yeah. Like most of those guys got where they're at because they were backing away from hell.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
And another thing is, don't ever judge. You know, one thing that I think I've figured out is we always judge other people's outsides, you know, judge our insides compared to other people's outsides. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I think one thing that being sober for a while and going through several awakenings, because really that means freedom from compulsory behavior and an awareness outside of your own kind of self-centered preconceptions, prejudices, compulsive behaviors, addictions, where you're able to look out, you're able to view the world in a way that's not being heavily influenced by your mind. Yeah, yeah. Right.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you really wake up, like what's happened to me is that I still have crazy shit, but I'm not scared of it. Sure. Yeah. I remember one time I was afraid. I mean, I remember when this all was going down, I had gone to the psych ward. I mean, I had all this stuff and I was afraid that I would like contaminate my son. And my wife at the time was like, "You want to give him a bath? It's his bath time." And I was sitting on this chair and I was terrified. Like I was just terrified. Wow. And I couldn't do it. And then all of a sudden something gave me the power, said, "Get up." I got up, I put a bathing suit on. We had a big garden tub. I turned on that shower and we played with his dinosaurs in there and we had a great time. Wow. You know, like it was that was a victory. That took so much. And when we were just sitting there playing with his dinosaurs in the shower, you know, I knew that I wasn't going to let this thing take me.
Wow, this has been awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. We are out of time for this evening, and thank you for getting so vulnerable with us. It's been powerful. It's been an eye-opening experience for me, and hopefully a lot of people can benefit from hearing this. I'm sure there's probably a whole world of people out there that can relate to it and would want to share their experiences with us. They may have had similar experiences. So we'd love to hear from anybody. You can reach us at recoveryrecordings615@yahoo.com, or obviously you can comment on the link on the YouTube channel. And until next time, thank you.
Hello. Thank you for listening to 3 Legacies Recovery Recordings. If you enjoy our program, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to share with a friend. We're also self-supporting, so feel free to contribute to the channel through Venmo at Recovery Recordings 615. Please note that the views expressed on this podcast are solely our individual views and do not represent any official stance of any 12-step program. We are not affiliated with any specific recovery organization, and this content should not be considered as professional advice for alcoholism or addiction.